Hi, hello, long time no see. I have had these two palettes on my desk for at least a week with the intention to film a vintage Pat episode, and I just couldn't get around to it. I'm going to start doing my makeup, so you know, we can just chat while we go through the motions. I'm taking my little pot here where I've deposited my Inglot eyeshadow primer because the squeezy tube was getting really hard for me to get the product out. And there was still plenty of product in there, so look how much was still left in there at the point at which it really appeared as if there was nothing left anymore. Anyway, you may have noticed that the content on my channel has been rather sporadic in the past couple of weeks. Not for lack of desire, let me tell you that it's really been for mostly, not even lack of time as much as lack of energy. Work has been absolutely insane, and I think it's going to stay pretty insane until the end of June. And I really hope that after June it's going to slow down a little bit, because I think physically I can just not maintain this for much longer than another 2 weeks. I'm going to take a little bit of this MAC Strobe Cream in the shade Pink Light. Oh yeah. And this little newness happened. I finally decided that I'm no longer in denial and I need reading glasses. So last weekend my husband took me to town, and we went into a drugstore, and I just got myself the cheapest of cheapest reading glasses, just so I can test things out a little bit. So I got this in 2 pairs, and I have a pair at work and a pair here at home that I can use, you know, when the occasion calls for it, which is not really that often. But you know, if I'm reading things on my phone or on my iPad in the evening, it was getting to the point where I was really struggling. I'm going to apply a little bit of this under my eyes here, because I think it really helps to revive my under eyes, bring a bit of hydration, bring a little bit of life, because like I said, life has been, especially work, has been really insane. What life? I don't have time for life. And I started mixing up stories here, yeah. So I finally got myself reading glasses, nothing too big, you know, just a +1 to compensate for the fact that my arm is getting shorter and shorter, and I just really needed a little bit of help when I have to read things from like a little bit closer up. But to go back to the craziness that work is at the moment, I'm going to take a little bit of the MAC Studio Water Weight foundation in the shade NC25. Really lovely foundation, very lightweight, especially for like a nice chill day like today. I think it's going to be perfect. Giving it a little shake, because it's a very liquid type formula, because it's a sheer type foundation, so you really want to mix it up a little bit before you apply it. Where was I? Yes, I was telling you that I have been completely out of energy because work has been really crazy. That's, you know, just the way it is. And to illustrate with an example, I actually had all the best intentions to film this video on Wednesday. I thought, okay, I'm going to take it a little bit easier this morning. I'm going to make time to film a video because I've really missed hanging out here. And then I turned on the camera, I started filming, and then halfway through the video, my boss called. And he asked me to take over a presentation from him that he was supposed to give the day after. So essentially I had to jump in very last minute and prepare a presentation in between doing other things at work. By the way, I'm keeping the foundation at a very sheer, almost like skin tint level type coverage, because it's very hot here today and I don't want to be sweating off massive amounts of foundation. I just want a little bit of coverage just to even things out a bit. I'm going to take a little bit of the Skin Correct concealer from Dior in the shade 1N. So halfway through the video he called, and then I basically lost all desire to continue filming, because first of all we were on the phone for about 10 minutes. He was deeply apologetic. It was like a very urgent family matter that he needed to attend to, and that's why he couldn't make the presentation. And also my boss, absolutely love him. This is very typical him, that something will happen last minute and then he will have to ask you for a favor last minute. But I absolutely love him. I'm glad to, you know, take over some of his work, because he's also insanely busy. I have no idea how the man gets the energy for this, because he's like, I'm 42 and I'm feeling it now that the pressure is on, and he is, I think, nearing 60 at this point. I don't know how he does it. Anyway, he is a trooper, but he asked me to take over this presentation from him, and of course I wasn't going to say no. But it also meant that I instantly had this rush of like panic, because I thought, oh gosh, I still have other things to do. I can't cancel these other things. I still have to do these other things at work. Plus I have to prepare for the presentation. Now luckily I already had a bunch of slides that I could just paste together from other presentations and just adjust a little bit based on the audience that I was going to present to. So in the end it was all okay. It's just that I've been so incredibly busy that even when I had the time to film, I just didn't have the energy. I would just turn on the camera and not have the energy to string a few sentences together. So today is Saturday, I'm taking it very chill, very easy, and I figured let's finally do this vintage Pat video because I'm really excited about it. I'm going to take the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder. This one is in the shade Dim Light to just set a little bit the foundation. Hopefully you're also going to see a video from me next week because my Lisa Eldridge order will arrive. No, I did not purchase the palette, the one with the khaki green and the gold that was released for the summer. I did, however, purchase 2 of the lipsticks. I purchased the 2 brown lipsticks and I am absolutely ecstatic about it. I wasn't planning to, I really wanted to keep my cool and not buy more brown lipsticks because I have brown lipsticks coming out of my ears. I don't need more brown lipsticks, but it's Lisa Eldridge browns. It's the Rouge Experience formula, which I really like. And given the amount of, you know, stress at work that I've had, I kind of needed the dopamine rush. It's really the worst reason in the world to be buying more makeup, stress, but every now and then we gotta give ourselves a little bit of a break. And you know, we need to make sure that we get that shot of dopamine, even if it is through purchasing new makeup. I've also been thinking really hard about my lipstick collection, and I think I need to do a little bit of a ruthless declutter because there are lipsticks in there which are very old, outdated formulas that I don't use anymore because they've been substituted by luxury lipsticks which I enjoy more. I'm going to take the Too Faced Laminating Brow Wax. There are also formulas in there from brands that I love that unfortunately I don't use because for one reason or the other they just don't work for me. And just to give you an example, I have this beautiful red lipstick from Pat McGrath Labs from the Bridgerton collection. So the satin, I think they were called the satin allures, with the little bows on the lipstick. Like the packaging, super cheap, nothing to write home about. The actual formula is very nice and I have this beautiful red lipstick. But that formula unfortunately bleeds on me. Like by midday it will start feathering really horribly around my lip lines, and I've noticed that because of that I just don't use it because I've got other reds which don't do that, which are very similar in undertones, and I just haven't used that lipstick in at least a year. So I really need to pass it along because I'm just not going to use it. Realistically, it's just going to sit there and I'll use it once a year when I feel really guilty that it's just sitting in my drawers. So I set aside a little container where I started putting the lipsticks in that I think realistically I'm just not going to use because I have 2 drawers of lipsticks. On my top drawer I have my Lisa Eldridge and my luxury lipsticks, and in the bottom drawer I have more of like a random melange of lipsticks, all of my Pat McGraths and other random things. And I only go into that drawer mostly for the Pat McGrath lipsticks and occasionally for something else random in there, but I mostly stick to my Lisa Eldridge and luxury lipsticks. So I just need to be a little bit more ruthless about it. Lipsticks that are already nearing 6-7 years old, very outdated formulas, being used and loved, they probably should just go. I haven't really used this bronzer in a while. This is the Dior Forever Glow Maximizer in the shade Bronze, and I think for today it would make a perfect bronzer shade. I'm going to apply a little bit on the back of my hand, and I'm going to apply it with a very dense brush. This one, which has a bit of a tilt, it's from Sonia G. It is her Jumbo Base. This has a beautiful, slightly coppery undertone to it, and I think it is absolutely beautiful for the summer months. Anyways, did you guys get anything from the new Lisa Eldridge collection? I'm sure a lot of you have purchased the palette and at least 1 lipstick. And you're probably wondering why I didn't buy the red lipstick. And that is maybe another like really interesting thing that I've discovered about myself. So the new lipstick that she has released in this summer collection is like a chili type red. And I used to really love chili type reds, like more yellowy based reds. But in the past couple of years, I've also come to the conclusion that they're not my perfect reds. I look okay in them, but I look far better in the cooler toned pinky reds. So I don't use my like warmer leaning reds as much. So that's another important lesson learned, and that is why I'm not purchasing the red from that line, because I actually still don't have a rouge experience in the in a red shade. I didn't buy ribbon because I have the original ribbon and I just don't think that anything can be better than the velvet ribbon. Maybe at some point I will try the rouge experience version of it when I pan the velvet version, or I'll just repurchase the velvet version, I'm not sure. But at this point she hasn't really released a red in the rouge experience line that has been really tempting me. But oh my gosh, those two browns, the shades Ray and Toasted, they look absolutely lovely. The shade Ray had my name written so all over it that one of you actually texted me before I had even seen the official promo pictures from the release to let me know that there is a shade in the lipsticks that has Mariam's name written all over it, and you were so right. And the other shade that I purchased is the shade Toasted, which looks like the most beautiful beigey, like neutral brown. And I've really been enjoying these kind of browns as well, so I'm very excited for these lipsticks, and I really hope that next week I'll find the time to show them to you. For blush, I'm going to take this cream blush from Pat McGrath Labs in the shade Sunlit Seduction, which I think is a beautiful shade to wear, especially in the summer, because it's this gorgeous terracotta, bronzy, you know, you've been in the sun and you've gotten a little bit of a tan kind of shade. So I'm just going to apply that on the apples of the cheeks and bring it up towards the temples. I'm curious to hear what you guys bought and whether you've already gotten it, because I think they were very fast with the shipping and a lot of people have already actually gotten their orders. I saw Charlotte Holdcroft already posted a video. I'm sure other people have gotten it as well. Oh, speaking of other people, I wanted to make a channel recommendation for you. So I've been kind of on the hunt for new channels to follow makeup wise, because a lot of my favorites unfortunately either aren't posting anymore or have gone MIA or post incredibly irregularly. I mean, obviously I'm not the best example either. I am also very sporadic with my content lately, so it's not like I'm being judgmental or anything. I just, you know, my way of winding down in the evening after a very stressful day at work is to just have my delicious food and then chill with a couple of makeup videos. But unfortunately there's been very little to watch, and I stumbled across this lady a couple of weeks ago and I've absolutely been loving her content. Her channel is called, I want to say it's Amelia's Beauty Chat, but let me quickly check. Yes, Amelia's Beauty Chat. Also on Instagram you can find her with the same handle, and of course I will leave her a link to her channel in the description box below. She's from the UK and she just has the most bubbly, you know, uplifting type of personality. She's really witty. I love her sense of humor. She's just so upbeat. She gives you all of that like really positive energy, and I've absolutely been loving watching her videos. So if you're looking for someone like low-key who also leans a bit more on the luxury makeup as preference, then I highly recommend checking out Amelia's channel. Let's stick with the Dior Glow Maximizer line for highlight. I'm going to do the usual, which is a mix of these two shades. These are the shades Peach and Gold. And I'm just going to put a dot of the shade Gold and then 2 dots of the shade Peach, because I really like the undertone of Peach. It's just a little too dark to be a highlighter on its own for me. So I just kind of mix the two on my cheekbones. And I'm going to use the same brush that I used for the bronzer and blush. So how have you guys been? What's up? What's new? What's cracking? Like I said, my life is extremely boring, nothing to report, just very busy at work. Next week we're finally going to a musical again. For those of you who are new to my channel, I absolutely love musical theater. I'm going to set everything with the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray, and I think I mentioned it before, but last year we went to see... Was it last year actually? Maybe it was the year before, I don't know. In some time in the past 2 years, we went to see Spring Awakening, Jesus Christ Superstar and Six, and I absolutely loved each and every one of them. And next week we're going to watch the Dutch version of Dear Evan Hansen, as in the lyrics will be translated. So I'm very curious about that. I am not too skeptical about it because the same thing happened with Spring Awakening, and I was a little bit reserved about, you know, hearing Spring Awakening in Dutch, but all of my, you know, doubts were completely erased by the performance. It was absolutely magical. It did not matter to me at all that it was in Dutch. I could follow it. I speak Dutch pretty well, so I could follow what's going on. I didn't really need to only rely on the music and like a short description of what the story is about on Wikipedia, which would be the case for someone who doesn't really speak the language. A friend of mine who lives here also really loves musical theater, but unfortunately they come from the US, so they don't really speak Dutch very well. It will be really hard for them to follow, so unfortunately they couldn't join us for Dear Evan Hansen. But in July we're going to see Hadestown together, and I'm absolutely ecstatic about seeing Hadestown because I've dreamed about seeing that musical for the past 4 years. Anyway, I've zoomed you in a little bit so we can get started on our vintage Pat eye look. The palettes that I have chosen are the Dark Galaxy from the first Star Wars release. FYI, if you don't have these Star Wars palettes, this palette, like all of these 6 eyeshadows, were also part of the Celestial Odyssey Mega Mothership that was released the year after. And I was inspired to do this look by an eyeshadow from this specific palette that I absolutely adore, which is this gorgeous, very hard to describe purple, because it is a purple but it has a very strong like bronzy shift to it, and it just looks so dimensional and complex on the lids. So I would really like to have this shade sort of be the star of the show. And the other palette we're going to be using is the Ritualistic Rose Quad, one of the original and only Blitz Astral quads that Pat McGrath ever released. And we're going to use one of my favorite shades in there, which is this one. This is the shade, let me see, Astral Rose Orchid. So we're going to use Astral Rose Orchid as a little bit of a topper moment, and I'll just see, you know, how I decide to use eyeshadows around that. But those 2 eyeshadows are going to be the main, you know, the protagonists in this story. I'm going to grab this brush, which is fluffy, but it also allows for packing, and I'm going to go into this shade and just use that all over my lids. And I figured we haven't talked about like TV shows in a while, so I wanted to share a few recommendations with you. First and foremost, let's finish our chats about Only Murders in the Building, because I recall in one of the previous episodes in this series, or in some previous video, we talked about Only Murders in the Building, and that I had picked up again watching the show after several years. I watched seasons 1 and 2, I enjoyed them quite a bit, and then somehow I missed or just wasn't in the mood to watch season 3 and season 4, and I only recently watched them. And I spoke to a couple of people, including in my comment section, and I know that one of these seasons you guys also perceived as just okay. Now, to me, season 3 was just okay. It was somewhat elevated by the presence of Meryl Streep and Paul Rudd. It was still okay to watch, but you know when you're watching a TV show and you cannot wait, like you literally cannot wait to watch the next episode? I didn't have that with season 3 of Only Murders in the Building. However, I did 100% have that with season 4. I really enjoyed season 4. I really loved the addition of all the guest stars, so Paul Rudd and Meryl Streep were joined by many other famous actors. What I really liked about season 4, first and foremost, was that for once, the actual murder that they were solving hit personally. Like, it hit personally for them, which made the emotional connection a little bit stronger, and you know, it felt like they are more invested, so I'm more invested in solving the murder. Second of all, I really liked the whole, you know, Inception kind of concept. Like, in season 4, they are approached by this producer who has a script, and they want to film the Only Murders in the Building podcast, because I don't know if you guys, I mean, if you don't know the story, then I'm totally like confusing you now. But the whole idea is that you have these like 2 elderly gentlemen played by Martin Short and Steve Martin, and this younger woman, Selena Gomez, and they form a very unlikely sort of detective trio trying to solve murders that only happen in their building, like the building that they live. That's why it's called Only Murders in the Building, and they make a podcast out of it. So in season 4, they are approached by someone who wants to film the Only Murders in the Building podcast. So that adds a whole like layer of comedic, you know, relief to the story, because they assign each of them an actor who is going to play them, and the 3 actors that they brought in to play our characters are Zach Galifianakis, Eugene Levy, and Eva Longoria. And oh my gosh, I did not know that Eva Longoria is so funny. I've only ever seen Eva Longoria in Desperate Housewives, and that's been quite a while. I haven't really seen her in anything else, but she was a breath of fresh air in Only Murders in the Building. I really enjoyed her. I'm going to actually now take a tiny bit of glitter glue because I want to apply the shade that I have on my lids now just over a bit of a sticky base so that it pops a bit more. Not that it doesn't pop now, it's just such a unique and stunning tone of purple, but I want it to pop a bit more. And I'm going to also apply a little bit in the inner corners for whatever we choose to be our inner corner highlight later. And now, just using my finger, I'm going to take a little bit of this shade to intensify the effect on my lids. And I have no idea how we've managed not to talk about Severance, because Severance absolutely blew my mind. Severance is up there in the same tier as Dark for me. If you've been watching my channel for a fairly short amount of time, let me give you a little tidbit. My favorite TV show of all time is the German show Dark on Netflix. Nothing better, like television masterpiece. Nothing better has ever been created. But Severance is easily in the same tier as Dark for me. It is so bloody good. And I've resisted for so long watching Severance because I just didn't know what it was about, and I kept confusing it with Succession. So for whatever reason, Succession got mixed up in my mind with Severance, and all of this time I thought they were one and the same. And I tried watching Succession, but Succession, just like Ozark, is the type of show that is high quality television, but it's the kind of show that doesn't really have a protagonist. Everyone is an asshole, and when I have no one to root for, I find it very difficult to form an emotional connection with the characters, and I just don't care. And when I started watching Succession, and same thing happened with Ozark, I've watched a couple of episodes, I couldn't connect with any of the characters. But then I talked to a friend, and he sort of gave a brief synopsis of Severance, and I thought, wait, we're talking about a completely different show here. We're talking about some sort of a sci-fi show. So if you don't know what Severance is about, without giving you any sort of spoilers, I'm going to say this. Some sort of a technology has been invented which is implanted in your brain, which makes it possible for you to basically lead separate lives. So in our specific case, this company hires people, and then they put that, device in their brains, and then as soon as they enter the elevator at work, they become severed. They do not know anything about their outie, so the person on the outside of the work building. They don't know anything about that person, and they just work in the building. Their whole life revolves around their work, because as soon as they step back into the elevator and go down, they become the outie again. So the innie, that's how they're called in the show, by the way, they call themselves outies and innies. So the innie leads a completely separate life, which is mind-boggling. It's crazy, and it's the kind of show, excuse me, I got so sidetracked that I completely forgot that we're actually doing makeup here. I'm going to grab a little bit of the Astral Rose Orchid shade, and I'm going to layer it over top of the bronzy purpley shade, because I think it's going to give it sparkle and dimensionality without really taking away from the undertones of that purple. So Severance is the kind of show where you watch an episode, completely insane things happen in that episode. I'm talking complete freaking insanity. And when I say it's pure insanity, I'm not even exaggerating. If you watch a couple of episodes, you will quickly catch on to what I mean. By the way, for my inner corners, I'm going to take the other Blitz shade in the Rose Ritualistic Rose Quad, and that is the shade Antique Gold 002, just to pop in my inner corners. You watch an episode, thoroughly insane things happen in that episode, and you think, this cannot get wilder and more insane. And then you watch the next episode, and somehow it does. So for 2 seasons straight, you watch an episode, things are wild, and then they become wilder and wilder and wilder, and then they build up to the season 2 finale. We luckily caught onto the show only now, when seasons 1 and 2 were already out, because apparently there was quite a gap, like a several-year gap between the releases of season 1 and 2, which would have been very difficult for me to withstand. But the show is absolutely amazing. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. I'm going to go back into the Dark Galaxy palette, and I'm going to take this matte shadow here, and I'm going to apply the absolute tiniest bit of that, and I'm actually going to mix it a little bit with this one here on my lower lashes, just to, spice it up a little bit. Have you guys seen Severance? What did you think of it? We absolutely loved it. Cannot wait for season 3. Alright you guys, so here is the final look. Attempts at sparkle moment would be completely futile at this point because there is so much sunlight coming into my room that if I turn on the artificial lighting on my phone, it is going to make zero difference. But trust me, if you look under artificial lighting, this is going to be a very sparkly look. Was it a very exciting look? That I don't know. I really like how it turned out. I really liked the unusual combination that these two palettes create. And I pulled them together only because I was trying to think of combinations of palettes that would fit into the vintage Pat theme. So I thought this was a really fun look. I really enjoyed it. Oh, before I forget, on my lips I have the Luxuriously Lucent in Rose Official by Lisa Eldridge. Speaking of lipsticks that I forget to use, Rose Official definitely falls under that category, and it is so beautiful. I have no idea why I'm forgetting about it, but I think it fits perfectly with the tones of the look. And it's just the perfect lipstick to wear on a day when you're really just low-key hanging out at home. I hope that you enjoyed this look. Do let me know what you thought about it. Do let me know what you thought about season 4 of Only Murders in the Building and Severance. I can't wait to chat about these shows with you in the comments because I'm sure a lot of you have already seen them. As usual, thank you so very much for watching, and I really hope we're going to see each other very soon to demo Toasted and Ray from Lisa Eldridge. Bye!